To model applications and components in IRMOS, we use the service modeling environment. We developed a UML profile to be able to model real-time aspects of applications. A UML profile provides a generic extension mechanism for customizing UML models for particular domains. Using the UML standard means that what we do, the methodology, the transformations, etc., should be applicable to other UML tools, like for example Enterprise Architect, Magic Draw, or others. In IRMOS, we are using the UML profile that we developed in Papyrus, which is a tool for modeling using UML too. We are using this tool, Papyrus, because it supports all the diagram types we need. It's open source, so it is possible to extend it, and it's free, so it's easily available to all the partners. Now I will show how to model the learning scenario using the service modeling environment. In short, we are going to show the models of the components of the application and their high-level parameters that are relevant for the real-time execution. From this model, an application service level agreement template will be automatically generated. This template is a document describing the application with some parameters left open for the user and the application provider to agree on. This is basically the application definition wrapped in a web service agreement container, which is an agreement between a service provider and a service consumer about the terms in which the consumer will use the application. This document will give essential information for the performance estimation service and the benchmarking processes. I will start with the predefined incomplete model, which I'm going to complete in this demonstration. First, the application developer models the components of the application. These are modeled using UML class diagrams and stereotypes for components and their parameters. Here we can see the specification of the component called Mobile Learning Service and its parameters, like for example the content type, the maximum number of users, or the maximum response time. For each parameter, we can define the ranges of the possible values, the units in which the values are defined, and the characterization of the parameter. Like if it's a workload parameter, whether it is a configuration parameter, an input or output parameter, whether the parameter is monitored, whether it's a quality of service parameter, a design parameter, or whether this parameter is editable. So after having defined components, the next step would be to use these components to model applications. These are modeled using UML composite structure diagrams. These models, the application models, describe the topology of the application. What are the components involved and the links between the components. In the case of the e-learning application, this model is very simple because there is only one component, which is the mobile learning service component. And this has an endpoint here, the endpoint to connect to a client application, and an endpoint to connect to the framework services. For the endpoints, it is possible to define their IP addresses. Like here, we have an IP address for this endpoint in this component, and we have a different IP address for the other endpoint. So, having defined the application model, now we need instances of our components. These are modeled using UML class diagrams. In the instances of the components, values, we can set values for the parameters of the components according to the schema defined by the component specification. So this was the component specification of the mobile learning service, and now we're going to specify an instance of this component here. So this is already started, the instance is here, but now we're going to set some of the parameters of this component. So basically we add a slot here, and then we select the parameter we want to define. So I'll set the parameter content type, and then we define values for the parameters. So I will set this parameter as 2 optional values. It can be educational content type or professional content type, and I will set this parameter to professional content type, and I will set another parameter. Here I will select the maximum number of users parameter, and I will assign the value here. This is an integer parameter, so 5. I'll set the maximum number of users to 5. Okay, so now we have defined an instance of our component. So additionally, the application developer can specify hardware constraints for the components. Here we can see a hardware constraint for this component. It has, for example, a constraint on the CPU model. There is one specified type of CPU, and also there is a constraint on the disk space required by this component. In this case, this constraint is set to 40 gigabytes of this component requires 40 gigabytes of disk space. Additionally, it's possible to define quality of service constraints for the component. We have an example here, constraint for the maximum response time. This has a parameter this has a reference to the parameter which is being constrained, and also the constraint has a reliability. In this case, the reliability is set to 80%, and this means that this constraint should be fulfilled in 80% of the monitored cases. Now I'm going to define values for this quality of service constraint. So we predefined two options for this constraint, fast and slow. And I will set the fast maximum response time to 1.5 seconds. The unit is defined on the component specification. And I will set the slow value to 2.5 seconds. Okay, so now we have defined an instance for the component. Finally, the final step is to model application instances. These are modeled using UML class diagrams, and here what we do is assigning component instances to the slots available in the application specification. So our application is here. This is the application specification. The application has one component. So now I'm going to create an instance of this application, which is basically setting a component instance in this slot. There is one available slot in this application. So I'll add the slot here, and then first step is to select the slot which we're going to set. There is only one slot, which is a slot for a server, and now I will assign here a component instance to this slot, which was the instance we defined previously. Here, this was the instance. So now with doing this, we have now an application instance. The next step is to generate an application service level agreement template. This generation is done automatically. We use the tool called MovScript that supports the generation of implementation code or documentation from models. This tool provides a metamodel independent language that allows the use of any kind of metamodel and its instances for text generation. So to create this application service level agreement template, first we select the source model, which is this UML file, professional application UML, and then we right click and we have an option to generate the application service level agreement template. So we do that, and then we get the message that a file, our template was produced, and we find it here, which is a file with the same name as the source model but with XML extension. Now we'll take a look at this file, the template which was created, and we can see the XML file here, and the values we specified in our UML model are here. Like here we have the hardware constraint we specified, a value for CPU model. We can see the constraint we set for the disk space, 40 gigabytes as we specified. Also we can see the parameters in our component, and some of the values we set. For example, the content type to professional, we set the maximum number of users to 5. Also the quality of service constraint that we defined here, the two possible values. There was a fast maximum response time which was set to 1.5 seconds, and a slow which was set to 2.5 seconds with a reliability of 80%. And also the IP addresses for the endpoints of the component, they are also here. So all the information about the application is here. All the information that was in the UML model comes to this XML representation, this application service level agreement. So this file then can be published and used in the IRMOS platform.